Welcome to Dr. Cindy Speaks, regular musings and reflections on politics, current events, and life as a congressional candidate. Dr. Cindy Banyai is a mom and small business owner, fighting for our water, our health, our community. She's running for the people of Southwest Florida, trying to flip Florida 19 from red to blue. Listen as she speaks truth to power and gets real about being a mom and a candidate.
I am a mom and small business owner fighting for our water, our health, and our community. And I am happy to be here today with you on July 6th, 2020 at 2:04 p.m. We have a fantastic show here for you today. We're going to be speaking with a wonderfully courageous candidate here for the Florida House, Laura Novosad, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about herself and what compelled her to run. We are here in the continuing peak of the coronavirus outbreak here in Southwest Florida, well, in Florida overall. But in Southwest Florida, we're taking a particularly hard hit. I know that last week, Dr. Antonucci of Lee Health, he's the president and CEO of Lee Health, was really trying to warn everybody to continue social distancing and their proper hygiene habits and wearing a mask out in public, because the rates at which the infection rates were going higher, as well as the hospitalization rates, he was worried that our hospitals were going to be full by the end of July, which is a very frightening thing to be hearing from the leader of the region's largest healthcare system. In addition to that, we also, I know from friends in the area who are doctors, that they received an emergency text message from Lee Health asking that they, if they had any ability to step in and provide nursing services in the ICU, if they'd be willing to do that starting that night, which again is saying that we have not only a crisis of capacity, but a crisis of human capacity in the hospitals to serve us. So I really do hope that everybody is staying healthy and safe and really heeding the warnings of our healthcare professionals to wear a mask and stay socially distant. But now I see that our guest is signing in, calling in, Laura. Let's get her connected. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Cindy. How are you today? Me? Yes, I can hear you very well.
Awesome. That's great. Sometimes my microphone's a bit wonky on this system, depending on how many tabs I have open, but seems like things are working well today. That's a win for a Monday,
it's good to hear your voice. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I so appreciate you coming on the show today to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and the race that you're running. So exciting that you are part of this amazing cohort of Democratic candidates across the state of Florida who decided to step up and stand up and say, we're not going to hand another race uncontested to a Republican in this year. And I am so proud to know you and to hear what is going on and how you got involved in this. So, let me just start with saying thank you for stepping up and running.
Well,
thank you.
Well, my thanks goes out to everybody. It goes out to you, Cindy, as well, for inviting me onto your podcast today. Yes, I'm Laura Novosad, and I am running for House District 80, which is Collier County Eastern and all of Hendry County. So people are asking me why I decided to run, and that's one of the main reasons, is because I just couldn't sit down and watch what was happening any longer. I needed to stand up. And so we are standing up collectively here in Florida with a Democrat in every single seat except one for both House and Senate state races.
That's amazing. It's been 25 years, right, since that's happened?
Yeah. No, it is amazing. It is amazing. And so let me tell you a little bit about me. I have lived in House District 80 for 22 years. We built a house in Golden Gate Estates back in 98, moved in 2000. And that's where my children were raised. They went to public schools in Collier County. And then we moved into Hendry about 7 years ago because my husband's actually in farming. And that's where he was commuting to. So I grew up here in Florida. I came from a family of five kids. I was one of five. I'm a middle child, and I have four brothers. And so I grew up fighting,
Wow.
For my piece of the pie, literally at the table. It was a crazy life, but it was a wonderful life too. And so, we in Florida, we used to have the most wonderful wildlife. We had so many animals, and we've seen a lot of that change over the course of my lifetime. And so that's very concerning. And I'm very concerned about a lot of the issues that are happening, both on a federal level and a state level and local. So that's why I'm standing up to run. I want to make a difference, and I want to see change come to Tallahassee.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. And we're so happy to have you and somebody who's been long time resident, in the area. So you really know what's going on, and have seen it changed over the years and can to speak to some of those changes. So I certainly appreciate that. Even though there's a lot of room for a lot of different types of candidates, it's nice when somebody has had the commitment that you have steps up to run. So we certainly appreciate that. But tell us a little bit about the district that you're running in. So it's Central Florida, like South Central Florida, right? What's going on there that people should know about?
Well, there's a lot of issues here in Henry County, especially like with the school systems. We have school system here that the public school system doesn't really provide quality teachers. They have taken to putting in full-time substitutes. And part of that problem is because teachers are having a difficult time passing a state test. So we need to get more qualified teachers into Collier and Henry County. We are having trouble here, obviously, with COVID. COVID's a big issue. There's been an uptick in cases. And I think that's, moving forward on the COVID issue. We need to do better testing. We need more rapid testing. We need better contact tracing, and we need to start following the guidelines that the CDC laid out, which we're not. The farming, the water quality issues.
That in Hendry. Yeah, okay. Before we move on to the water quality, I have a question about health, because I actually really love talking about Hendry County because I've done quite a bit of work there. So it's like my favorite rural county in Florida. So one of the things that came out through some of the research that I had done in helping the community align some of their goals in a community-driven economic development plan was that there is actually not a heck of a lot of healthcare resources across the county. And so I'm wondering, as we're seeing an uptick in the county, where are people going? Are they going either to the East or West Coast for treatment, or, how is that happening in Henry County?
Henry County has a small hospital in Clewiston. Very small, but I don't believe they're handling a lot of COVID cases. Most people in Henry County are going inland to Lee County or to West Palm Beach. They'll go to one or the other. Henry County has no birthing center. No babies are born in Henry County, not one, unless you're born in the backseat of a car in your own home. So we do need a hospital that could manage the load of this county, and we're waiting on the demographics. So to get a hospital, you need about 45,000 people living in your community, in your county, and we didn't have that at the last census. We had about 43. So we're very close, and we're hoping when this new census comes through that will bring in the numbers that we can then get a full-fledged hospital with the birthing center. As far as COVID patients, you do have to travel, and that makes that more difficult to get quality health care, not just for COVID, but for heart attack and other general health issues that come up on a day-to-day basis.
Well, you just said something really important too. I want to pick up. Do the census. Everybody do the census. If you haven't filled it out yet, there's still an opportunity. There should be a code that got sent to you. And I know, here's another thing that I did, Laura, and I'm not even sure if you know this part, but I was actually did a bit of research around the county too, to see how many places had appropriate mailboxes in relation to the county's residential guide for the census, because it went to people's house with the code instead of like the paper, how it had been in years past. And we had some pretty interesting pictures that the group of researchers I was working with took around Hendry County, where we were questioning whether or not mail would even be delivered there, like out in Hookers Point and Clewiston, where people, it's like there's one mailbox for the entire like trailer park community, right? And it becomes a challenge for that. But we really, really, really absolutely need people to do the census. And it sounds like that's something, especially in Hendry County, being one of those harder to count regions, really, really needs people to do.
Yeah, and mail, a lot of people in this area choose to have a P.O. box as opposed to a mailbox in front of their home because it's rural. And they felt their mail is safer that way. I myself have a P.O. box, but I also have a mailbox in front of my home. When we do mailings for the Democratic Women's Club, trying to get people to register to vote by mail, we have seen a large amount of mail come back. Like out of a 500 mailing, we saw about 60 come back that were for undeliverable because of no mailbox. So in some of those cases, they just don't have the money to put a new mailbox in. In other cases, they have a P.O. box. But I know in some of the areas where there is a lot of mobile homes that are linked together, usually that is considered oftentimes a migrant work camp, and they will have just one mailbox for everybody. So,
and that's where my research, what's what we were looking for. We were mapping transnational communities around Hendry County. And so we were trying to find where people might be living. And we were kind of saying, oh, by the way, while we're here, let's check out the mailboxes in relation to the census kind of thing. So it was fascinating. And the census we'll have a conversation about that someday too.
And it's very different. Henry County is obviously very different from Collier County, which is an affluent area, and the majority of the voters between Henry and Collier are going to be in Collier. So in my district, I have about 100,000 voters that are coming out of Collier, and then a lot less coming out of Henry. So 100,000, and Henry would have about the 43. So that's how we get to the magical 150 number for a district. So for the state rep. So I don't know that Henry County is always getting the credit that or the needs that it has addressed over the ones of Collier. So they have a little bit more pull that way.
Yeah, that happens.
So
sometimes.
What else?
But I know that you're going to champion them because that's where your home is. And I really hope that, because that's one of the ways that I got involved with Hendry County is because there wasn't people advocating for them because it was rural and not as populated. And it just, I like a really special place in my heart because I've done a lot of work with folks out there just listening to what they want and need. And I know that they need a champion and voice like everybody else and like a lot of rural communities around the country. So,
one of the areas that we are suffering right now in terms of healthcare also is mental health care. It was last year where we lost our mental health facility. They just pulled out. And so that left the people kind of a void. And since then, I believe there has been a new group move in, but
Good.
obviously the mental health care across the state needs help. And so one thing
Absolutely.
I'm looking to help with when I get to Tallahassee is focus on trying to help those mental health centers be reestablished and to be funded properly so that we can get people healed, healthier.
Absolutely. That's a very important point. And I just want to loop back to give you the opportunity to speak because I know I jumped in on the healthcare question, but I think you were starting to tell us a
Well,
little bit about the agriculture in your
oh,
area as well.
yeah. So agriculture is a very important component of Henry County. It's the largest economic, money producing base. So we produce millions of pounds of food per day, and even Immokalee, and all throughout Henry County. We also have larger operations as well as mom and pop, small operations in farming. So there's a lot of opportunity in farming, and the farming here is very important on not only to Florida's economy but also to the economy across the U.S. because during those winter months when the rest of the country is not producing, we are producing the food that is required to feed millions of people. And so I think it's important that we keep farming viable because we need it. I mean, we noticed when COVID, when the shelves started emptying out, we were concerned. And so we have to keep it viable. And then on the other part of that equation, you've got the environment itself, the need for protecting wildlife and the need for protecting endangered species and keeping our water clean. And farming has been one of the major polluters in the area. So how do we balance, those two things? And then the third part of that equation is when you add in growth. And Florida is growing, and there'll be need for more housing. And we're transforming a lot of major farmlands now into developments. And so all these three components are stretching our resources in the area, resources of water, resources of land. And these are not finite. They're finite. They're not, we can't get more. So I think,
Right.
in terms of, so it's a very complicated question, and it's a very complicated problem, to say the least. So, I think we need to bring everybody together so that we can, sit down and discuss these things and come up with real concrete solutions. And I think recently our state has kind of turned away from the scientists and research-driven legislation that would help Florida. And so I want us to get back to that. I want us to protect those wild places so that we can protect those as species that need protecting. And I want us still to be able to produce the food we need to keep, but to do it cleaner. And so in farming specifically, I think we're going to have to be looking at some changes. Farming already is a very scientifically based industry. Science is very utilized in everyday farming. And about every 10 years, we're seeing new science come out that changes farming and how it's done. And we'll probably need to continue that. But I like to see some more sustainable energy brought into farming, use less fossil fuels in a farming process. We can increase yield by better practices and all these different issues to help that. In terms of development and growth, we need to start looking at a smaller footprint of land because we don't want to lose this major farmland that we need for growing land, for growing food. And so we need to have more people on less land as we grow. And in terms of the environment, we need to continue to purchase and to set aside conservation lands and to protect those species that need to move in and out of these conservation lands so that they can survive. So it's going to be a big, and we need to get back to the plan that was, originally put in place.
Mhm.
So that's my
Yeah.
take on it.
Yeah, I love that.
It's like I said, it's an extremely complicated situation. And as far as the water, I mean, we need to hold the people that have polluted the water. We need to hold them accountable for that.
Absolutely.
And we need to. The blue-green algae that came down the Caloosahatchee River in 2018 was in my backyard, and it was dangerous. And it caused illness among people, asthma problems, and then hit this ocean. And now we have the red tide, and we're dead fish everywhere. I mean, it was a disaster. And so there's so much that we can do, but we do need to get the phosphorus out. We do need to send the water south of Lake Okeechobee so that we can save the river of grass. And we need to do all that and bring everybody at the table. And we need to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And water's a big issue for me. It's, when I do my introduction, it's our water, our health, and our community. And so I'm right there with you with needing to understand the complexity of the situation, needing to balance the need for agriculture and for food production and for business and livelihood, to, have them be a component of it. But also, again, holding companies accountable when they are polluting. And that's something that Rick Scott administration in particular was just completely awful at. There was, a significant drop in the number of prosecutions and, regulation violations during his administration because they just absolutely let them go hog wild and didn't hold anybody accountable. And so we need strong leadership on that. And we need people in the House like you who are going to hold our other state politicians accountable on these kind of things. And the other component of it that I love that you said that's really important and near and dear to me is making sure that our policies are research-based, are science-based, are evidence-based, because that's another thing that's a real main key theme of my campaign as an evaluator, as somebody who wants to make data-informed decisions. It's something that I'm going to bring to the table. Every piece of legislation I put forth is going to have those components, have the basis in fact, in reality, and then have us be able to measure the outcomes of it. That's really important to me. And I love that you said that because we need more people who are doing that. I feel like we have a lot of people who have been elected. They've been bought and sold by private interests and companies. They don't really care about these issues. They care about themselves, their power, their exalted position, and they just have financiers coming in, filling their coffers, and then they're doing whatever they want. And that's how you have polluters run amok. It's how you have terrible policy because it's based on some kind of fringe ideology instead of actual science and research based, right?
And yes, an example of that would be in 2018 when they put forth proposals to send dirty water back into our groundwater. And just, if we shove it back into the ground, it'll just disappear, won't it? Well, they forget that almost all of Florida are on wells. We're getting out here in the rural county, we're getting our water off of wells. We don't have city water treatments. And so that's a policy that was really, not grounded in science at all. And thank God it didn't pass, But, we also need to look at fracking in Florida. Fracking affects groundwater, and there should be a complete ban on it. But as of yet, there hasn't been able to reach a consensus in the state level to bring forth a ban on fracking. But hopefully, if we can get some new people into office, that'll be a quick and easy done deal. We can we can ban fracking in Florida,
right?
And it'll be the end of that question on the table instead of all these years of the fracking issue continuing to come up, every single legislative session. And it's a fight, that we need to stop talking about and start doing something about. And in order to get more done on that issue, we need to get more people like-minded, like you and I, into office.
Yep, absolutely. And coordinate all the way down the chain. That's a big thing for me. I'm running for federal office. And so there's a role that our national government has in terms of helping to support what the states want and need. And, also we, as representative, we serve our constituents. That's supposed to be our role. So I'm very fundamentally committed to making sure that I'm connecting with people in our district to help that improve their quality of life. And but that means also coordinating with our other officials on the various levels, because we need to have a coordinated strategy in order to get things done. We need federal funding for certain things. We need local action to make the vision of what somebody may want in federal policy happen. And I think that you have to build these coalitions and work together with people to find that common ground in order to make it accomplished. So I really appreciate someone like you running for office, being this champion of science and water.
Well, thank you.
And that we can continue to fight for the state of Florida and the people who live here and the animals and the wildlife too, because without that kind of coordinated strategy and connections around what's really important, it does allow for these big interests and these politicians who are out for themselves to take advantage and sell us out, like we've been seeing. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the issues that I think
let's talk a little bit about. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to talk about climate
I was going to ask you another question, but it sounds like you have an issue. So yeah, tell us about that.
No, well, I just think we need to be doing more in Florida to counteract climate change. It's happening, whether you believe it or not. And, Florida's at huge risk here of sea level rise and, losing Florida altogether. So I think it's a huge major issue. And we need to be looking into the future and how fast can we get ourselves off of fossil fuels and back into a clean energy grid. And it's so important that we do this, especially in Florida. And in terms of farming, we have seen lower yields happening in the farming because of global warming. So, it's across the board. It's affecting everything. And, there's so much we could do in Florida that's not being done. And it is those lobbyists that are lobbying for what they want. And instead of looking at the bigger picture, we need to get back into the business of working for the people. And so if you had, I could love to talk more about climate change. I have a vision for Florida, which includes, more solar panels on every home and new codes, building codes that would include solar collection and battery pack storage. But those things aren't happening because we have been keeping them from happening through by the regulations that are put in place for putting solar panels on the roof. So right now there's the Florida Public Service Commission, and they regulate how the electric companies are able to agree to have metered rates, buyback rates. And right now, if you put a solar panel on your roof, you will get pennies on the dollar for what that electricity cost you if you were to buy it. So right now you're paying about 11 point something, a little under 12 cents per kilowatt hour. But if you put solar panels on your roof, you could reduce that theoretically to zero and have additional electricity that you could put back on the grid. Well, what you put back on the grid, the Florida Power and Light and other electric companies, not even all of them accept what you put back on the grid. They do a policy that they call as available energy. And so they'll pay for what they use, but they'll only pay you 2.5 cents of what you have to pay almost 12 cents for. So there's a big disparity. In addition to that, if they'll only allow you to build a grid that's only 115% of what supposedly your house will use. Well, what if you want to get an electric car? That's going to use more electricity. What if you want to generate more electricity because your daughter wants to get an electric car, or and so that you can power your electricity through the sun, and they limit you, and so they put restrictions on it, and basically the utility companies are managing that on their own without any authority to give you the permit to put it on your house or whatever. And it's keeping people from reaching that economic break point where they can have the system have paid for itself. It puts it further and further down the road. And so a lot of companies and a lot of individuals are choosing not to go to it because it costs so much to put in. So we could do more solar incentives. We could bring back the solar incentives that Obama put in place. And we could see the state need for fossil fuels decrease. We could also put in more charging stations on our major highways. You could put in a charging station at a rest stop and have it powered by solar panels, and let cars stop there and charge their car while they take a rest and have a lunch and walk their dog. And within a half hour or so, they could generate enough power on their battery to move forward, and so that we can have more and more electric cars on our state. And that's the way the future is going. We are moving towards automated cars that drive themselves and electric powered vehicles, and the combustion engine is on its way out. So we need to be creating the grid that will support that type of vehicle in the state. And that, I think, there's many ways that we can help in Florida, but those are two. And solar power is getting cheaper and cheaper to produce, and it's getting to the point that it's going to be no longer feasible to use dirty energy. So I was reading a study just this morning that we may be looking at within 30 years, the combustion engine, there'll be no more. So
Wow.
it's for the personal vehicle, for personal vehicles. So we need to create the infrastructure.
Absolutely we do. And I think that you bring up some important points too around the regulation components and who the regulations are for and aren't for. So it seems like the limiting the amount of energy capacity that the solar panels can have on a house, because it benefits, that regulation benefits the electric companies, right? So it keeps them
absolutely
in business doing what they need. So that kind of regulation is good, according to right. It keeps them in power. But it's so funny.
They get a monopoly.
Yeah, they do. But Republicans who
it's a
hate regulations, right? But they only hate regulations when it constrains business, right? Or
well, they could look at it differently.
Regulations. When they when it
helps them, right? When it helps them, exactly. In addition to that, they on some larger units they require the homeowner to put in an insurance policy on it, and that can be up to $1 million insurance policy on the system. Which I don't know how they get the authority to mandate that, but that leaves even more people off the. It takes the incentive away for people to go solar and to use it as a supplement, and it needs to stop. So
we need to
we need to look at that, and maybe the Florida Public Service Commission needs to be rethought. There needs to be a new way of putting people on that instead of having them appointed. Right now, it's the way it is. So we could take that away from. I think they're appointed out of committee. Right? Huh?
I say we have a few of these, incredibly important governing boards in Florida that are
Oh yeah.
governor appointee, the board of governors for the higher education system here, the water management districts, right?
Yeah.
And there's more, but it's just, I don't think we're not always very well in touch with how powerful some of these appointees are in regulating components that are really important in our life. And
so we need to think about,
influence of the governor.
Right. And, that all comes down to money and politics. And if we can get that out, get the money out of politics, then we could get people on these boards that are actually interested in helping people, not interested in the money, and not influenced by others. So it's so complicated, and yet it seems so easy when you step back. We have to start somewhere.
Right. You have to start somewhere. And I will say that, one thing that I think is important to us to recognize, right, is that, yes, these are complicated systems. Sometimes they're purposefully complicated to make it look like there's this independent oversight when there's really not, when it is very much, controlled by the governor and the party of the governor. But I think that there's an important recognition.
And special interests.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
But it's important to recognize that there is complexity within systems. This is just my own over the past, several in the United States, as we've been moving towards this hyper simplification of issues that are very complex, because people have, they lost their tolerance for complexity. They really just wanted things to be simple and easy. This is where you see this whole nostalgia for the past. And I mean, this is where I think the whole, Make America Great Again, all this kind of stuff came from this idea, is that modern life is so complicated. Global systems are so complicated that it's overwhelming to some people. So they want to revert back to this time where they felt like things were simple and straightforward. And, I think that, us as politicians and us as leaders and officials, what we have to do is recognize the complexity, right, of situations, take in consideration those multiple perspectives, those multiple issues when we're addressing something, but then help to message it out to people that they can get it, and it's not overwhelmingly complicated. Working on too in my campaign, right, is trying to demonstrate that, yes, I have this understanding of the complexities of it, but let me help you understand it, so that you can.
Cindy, can you hear me, Cindy?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Cindy? Okay. Well, you were I didn't hear that last question.
That I might
lost you. I got another phone call.
Oh. No, I was just saying can you still hear me? Laura?
No, you're kind of breaking in and out. Yeah, I can hear you, I think.
Are we back now?
Yeah, we're back. Yay.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. It's about to rain here.
All right.
That's when my internet goes wonky. But I was just saying the complexity is fortunate position where we can help people understand the complex nature of it, and that we can address these issues even though they are complex, because what we learn too from philanthropy and from nonprofit land is that people, when they think things are too complex, they, like you said, they don't know where to start. And if problems are too overwhelming, and so I think that we need to kind of balance the complexities of it with open solutions to address them.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love, you're talking about the solar panels, because that's exactly where we start with things like that. We can't address, it's taking bites out of the elephant, right? It can't address the whole thing in one fell swoop. but we can take these, parts and make progress.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to get there. I do have a lot of hope for our society and for Florida. I know we can make the changes that we need. One of the things I didn't mention under the medical issue is that very quickly, if we can change Tallahassee, we could expand Medicaid here in Florida, and we, would provide additional medical health insurance to an extra 800,000 people who are marginalized and don't qualify for Medicaid, and yet don't have the money to buy private insurance. And that would go a long way with an immediate effect. The state, there was a group working on putting Medicaid expansion on the November ballot this fall with a petition using the Citizens Initiative. But our, new state governor went so far as to change the rules of citizens initiatives so that they became out of reach, and it was more difficult to meet the quota for petition numbers signed, and also the types of people that could work on getting petitions signed was changed. And it's one of the reasons I'm running is because I'm seeing so many avenues that we used to have that the people used to get things done in Florida. And this was one of them, the Citizens Initiative. And that's been pretty much taken away. And is by the regulations that are making it more difficult. Then there's the right to vote in Florida is being taken away from members of Florida through gerrymandering, through making the felons have to pay in order to get back on able to vote, passing laws that kept felons from voting in the first place. And these paths that gave people power are being pulled away. And so we need to get back to governing for the people. And that's why we all need to get out and vote. We all need to raise up and start, get in this fight, because we are fighting now for our survival. And I have hope that we're going to win. We're going to get through to the end of this, and we're going to be back on top. Because it wasn't always a state run by politicians who cared for what big business wanted and what special interests wanted. There was a time when we had a good government that was doing things for the people. And we can get back there, Cindy.
We can.
So, yes, we can.
You're getting me fired up. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's all get out there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's so important. It's so important that we have this inspiration, because I think this is where I I feel the same way about, working for the people like you do. And I know that there's been so many things that have happened in the way in Florida around voter suppression, taking away the polling locations, limiting the early voting hours. Luckily, we have vote by mail here that's widespread and easy to use. So absolutely, everybody get your vote by mail. Just get it. And because you can still, if you choose to go to the polling location on voting day, you can turn in your ballot that day. So you can still have that option if you wanted to. But definitely get it, because we have no idea how much more COVID is going to surge. I'm extremely worried about that, because it seems like it's completely out of control, and we're looking at hospital overloads as well. So get that vote by mail.
And another way that they suppress the vote in Florida is that they leave areas that are where their constituents or where people that are going to vote for them live. They make the process to vote so easy. You walk in, there's 20 machines, and 2 people are at at the machines. It's very fast. There's no line, no waiting. But in other communities, of marginalized communities, where they don't want to get their vote in, they make it difficult. They put in machines that break. They put in fewer machines. They close polling sooner. And on those days, people stand and wait in line for hours and hours to vote. That's true for in Golden Gate City in Collier County, because I've voted there before. It's all across. And so we have to start taking back our country, and we have to start taking back our right to vote. And what DeSantis is doing right now, keeping the felons from voting by going ahead and, contesting what was already a ruling from the judges, is it's just another way of suppressing the vote. And whether or not the felons at this point, ex-felons will be able to vote come this November is in question. And so, I am hopeful that we will continue to register people to vote. Another way they do it is they purge the voting records. So people don't even know if you have to go and check. If you haven't voted in a number of years, check your voting record, go in and re-register. You can re-register for free. It doesn't cost anything. And that, in a sense, will get your signature up to date as well. And check your address. If you're voting from a different address than what's on your driver's license, they're not going to let you vote. So you need to make sure they match. You need to make sure, if you're voting by mail, that your signature is up to date. And so that it hasn't changed over the last 10 years. Maybe now you've developed a tremor in your hand and you shake a little. That will change your signature. Maybe your last name has changed. You got married and you're different. So you need to get all that in ready, because there will come a time where you can no longer fix it. There's a deadline. I think it's in September, right? Mid-September.
Well, for the primary on August 18th, it's July 20th. And I absolutely encourage everybody to check their voter registration soon and make sure it's up to date by July 20th. First of all, because you need to register as a Democrat and vote for me if you're in Florida District 19. Also, there are nonpartisan races that are in the primary on that ballot. As you're not registered with the party, you can vote in those races, like Cape Coral City Council is one of them, for example. They're nonpartisan races, so you have to be registered to vote to do that. So you have to register by July 20th to do that for the August 18th. It's really important too, because some of those primaries, especially if they're, they're uncontested. Now everything's contested. That used to be a thing where we used to just let the Republicans run rampant, right? Where it was like whoever won 50% gets
not
the
this
seat.
time.
Not this year.
Not this time. No.
Not this year. Absolutely.
Nope. We're going to spice it up.
We're going to do it. So, but it's still important to vote and get that vote by mail just in case by July 20th, and also vote for me. But make sure you're voting for Laura in the general election, and we'll double check on those dates. But you can if you do it now,
I won't be in the primary.
Huh?
Right, I won't be on the primary ballot because I don't have a primary opponent, but I will be on the November ballot. So I hope everybody will take some time and get to learn about who I am and what I stand for, and vote for me in November for sure.
Absolutely.
There's so many issues. I was trying to think if there was another issue that we could talk about.
We're coming up, and so we've talked about a lot of really important issues, and I really appreciate your knowledge and your enthusiasm for these issues, because it's hard to keep track, I will say, because there's so many things that we need to be aware of in terms of our environment and growth and, balancing these things. And you've just done it so beautifully. But I was going to say, what's the hook for us? What's the hook?
So
why, what is it about Laura Novosad that's gonna get the people going? What is it? What's the hook? Tell us.
Well, I'm an honest person. I could tell you a story about when I was younger, when I was in high school, where I was in a class and everybody was cheating. It was an English class. I never did very well in English, actually. And it was a book that they were writing on. I didn't read the book. And I found that the teacher was not caring. And I started cheating on a test. And I tell you what, I felt so upset about it after I was sitting there and so disgusted with myself that I walked up to the teacher and I gave her my test. And she says, "What's this? It's not finished." And I said, "No, it's not, but I was cheating and I want you to give me an F." And she looked at me, and I remember the other kids in the classroom just went silent. There wasn't a word out of anyone. You could hear a pin drop at that moment. And I was in the 9th grade at Coconut Creek High School in over in the Pompano Beach area. And the teacher took the test and she threw it in the garbage, and she picked up a new test and she gave it to me, and she said, "Well, then go back and don't cheat." And that lesson has stuck with me my whole life. You don't cheat. You don't do it. You don't lie. We're sitting here with a government that's lying to us. It's not telling us the truth. And it's really disconcerting. Mm-hmm. And that's another big reason why I'm standing up, Cindy.
I love it. That's beautiful. Yeah, we need honesty and integrity and truth. Such a fantastic story. I really, it really helps to, give us that idea of your character around this, because you're right. We need it. We need to be able to trust our government and our officials, that they're not giving us bad information. And I'll say this once again.
And the data.
Yes, the data. We're, being manipulated and lied to about that.
It's
horrible.
It's been horrible. And honestly, I think there needs to be, on the state level, we need to start an investigation of what has been transpiring on the COVID-19 response and how the data has been collected and given to the public. There should be an investigation so that we can get to the truth, and so that we can trust our officials. We don't really know what the truth is. We look at our death rate across the state of Florida, and it seems disproportionate to death rates in other areas. And how is that? Is our science on treating COVID patients better than the science in the rest of the world? Or was our response quicker? I would say our response was, slower. We were slower to shut down. We were quicker to reopen. So, we need someone to check, and to do that type of research. And Cindy, you'd be the one to get one of your students out there and find what was the death rate last year and in previous years during these months, typical for populations in Florida, and what has it been in these months that we've been dealing with COVID, and how is that different in terms of percentages? Because we need the truth, and I don't know that our government has been completely truthful with us.
No, and in fact,
especially on these numbers here in Florida. And the scandal with the woman that did the database website. And her leaving and coming out and saying that she was asked to fudge numbers. I mean, we need to look into this. This is criminal.
It is. Well, that's Dr.
Anyway,
Rebecca
don't get
Jones
me started. Don't get me started.
I know. We're going to have to wrap up.
So this is why I'm here. This is why I'm going to run, because I can't sit there any longer and expect that I can trust what's happening. So. So that's why I'm standing up. And honestly, I hope the people out there are going to stand up with us. I want to see them get out there, talk to your neighbors, get people engaged, find ways to volunteer. We have to make a difference in the state of Florida, and I'm hopeful that we will, because I believe I'm not the only person who is sitting with this. I have anger in my heart about all this, and it's scary for me.
No. Yep. Move to action. I love that. And
move to action.
Yep. And we can at least be know that Dr. Rebecca Jones has filed the whistleblower complaint for her dismissal and for her, being asked to manipulate the numbers. So hopefully we'll get some investigation coming out of that. We need to hold our government accountable because, yes, I am tired of, like you, Laura, I'm tired of being lied to for political gain. I'm tired of, having an unchecked, rampant pandemic threatening my family and my community as, political periphery damage for the real.
And I know you have a daughter. You have a child who's at risk.
Vulnerable.
That must be extremely difficult as a parent to have to deal with the way DeSantis has decided that we're all going to get it. So let's just all get it quicker than later. Yeah. There's so much we could do. We could put a mandate out for people to wear masks. This is an airborne illness. We can all wear a mask. And how is wearing a mask become a political issue? It's not political. It's about science. It's about protecting our children and protecting our elderly. And it's an easy thing to do. I myself have been making masks for members of my husband's packing house when they were under operation all through March and April. I made masks and handed them out to the members that were workers there. And we did not have a COVID problem at that plant.
Right.
So, there are things that can be done, just a simple thing. And we could also, where's our rapid testing? We need rapid testing, which would bring us. So I'm not sure what has happened to the rapid testing that they all talked about. They started with, this great rapid testing, and then, they sent out millions and millions of test kits to different states. And then, where's Florida's rapid test kits, or the test has just proven to be invalid, or, it doesn't, produce the results that they thought. But,
right. Just complete and utter failure, and utter failure from top to bottom. That's
so we need to get back to following the CDC guidelines, which mandated that there be lower infection rates on a consistent basis that were near zero, which is the exact terminology from the CDC's guideline. For each stage of reopening, we should be at near zero and a declining number. Near zero with 10,000 every day now.
11,445 or whatever we were the peak day.
Yeah. DeSantis today was talking on a news, which I listened to, his news conference on COVID. And he says, when we were back in March, we were seeing maybe 3%, he said, of the people they tested were showing positive. Now it's an average of just under 15 as steadily for the last week, which he said that. Those were his words. For the last 10 days or so, we're at just 15%. And we're testing more, sure. But the number of people testing positive is 15% of those tested. I mean, that means
community spread is wide.
It's wide. So, I keep trying to urge everybody as I can, wear a mask when you go out, wear a mask if you have to go anywhere, stay home otherwise. And it's true, we're seeing a lot more young people have it now than older people because they're the ones who feel, invulnerable, like all young people do. But there was just a recently 11-year-old child that died of COVID. So that's
and
our first.
and Fort Myers, Cypress Lake High School student here who was 17. She died
passed
too.
away. Yeah.
That was a couple weeks ago. And that was, unfortunate too. So yeah, this is not a game. This is not,
It's not. It's our lives on the line. Yep.
It is our lives. And I was horrified when, Rush Limbaugh and other pundits and the conservatives, talking head sphere said that we should just sacrifice some people for the economy. That's my daughter that they're talking about.
Yeah.
She deserves a chance at life, and she deserves it, yeah.
Yeah. And, have we just stayed closed, if we'd have closed sooner and then stayed closed a little bit longer, we might have been able to do what like Michigan has done. Michigan was third on the list in terms of rapid COVID spread, and they shut down quickly, fastly, and they stayed shut down. And now we are the ones that are approaching the top of the list here in Florida, and Michigan is far, far below. And they're reopening now safely, where we're reopening in a very different way. So what's up?
High risk.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, we could probably keep going on and on about this, but let's close out today's COVID-19 diatribe.
Okay.
There's going to be a brand new diatribe tomorrow, I'm sure. But before we go, Laura, tell us, where can we find you and how can we help you?
Okay. Well, you can find me at novosadforflorida.com. It's my webpage. You can find me at Novosad for Florida on Facebook. You can help me by volunteering to work with my campaign or volunteering to donate. I'm a little bit slow. I don't have Act Blue up yet, but I do have DonorBox. So you can go on DonorBox and / Laura Novosad, and I will pop up. I do have links to that on my webpage. And we need help. We want your help. You can help out by getting more people registered to vote. You can help out by talking to your neighbors and getting them to understand how desperate it is that we all get out and make our voices heard. I would like to, I do have a closing, I think somewhere. I wrote it down.
Okay. Do you have it?
Yeah, I do. I think it's here. But are you ready to close? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Give it to us. Give it to us.
Folks, there comes a time when you have to take a stand in life, and I can not sit down any longer. I'm now standing up, and I'm asking you to stand with me. Join me in this fight, because we can do better, and we will do it together. So if not me, then who? Let's all get out there and fight for what we need. If not me, then you. Together, we can do it. We need new leadership, and I'm asking you to vote me to lead you to a better future here in Florida. So vote for Laura Novosad for State House of Representatives, and I'll be honored to represent you.
Yay, that was fantastic. Very moving. And yes, that's it. If not me, then who? And I think that's compelling so many of us.
Yeah.
And it should compel every single person to the ballot box or to their mailbox with the vote by mail. Because if you don't vote, somebody else is.
Yeah.
And they're going to be voting for the wrong person. That's quite likely, right?
Yeah.
So we have to flip it, and we're so proud and honored to fight and serve the people in Florida and Southwest Florida, because it's time. It's time. We have the real champions of the people get into these positions across the Florida in the state legislature, as well as in our congressional seat. And that's what I'm trying to do too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy, for the opportunity.
Laura?
Yeah. Novosad, Novosad for Florida, FOR4, novosadforflorida.com. And it will pull it up. Should be. Check it out, Cindy. What do you think?
Absolutely. novosadforflorida.com. Visit, donate, volunteer. Thank you so much, Laura Novosad, for joining us here today, and for everybody else for joining us here at Dr. Cindy Speaks. Have a good day. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dr. Cindy Speaks. If you'd like to learn more about her campaign, go to cindybanyai.com or connect with her directly at vote@cindybanyai.com. We love connecting with people. Contents of this podcast are paid for and approved by friends of Sandy Banyai.